All right, I'm shifting over to this side because I want to make some comments to you this evening about something that we are just really excited about, and I would say it has been a process that is 3 years in the making. And by that, I mean we started in 2019 with a conversation that began around our strategic plan. Several of you were a part of the strategic planning process. Many of us were, many of our parents were. But from that, we kept what is our mission statement. And I think it's always important to start a conversation like I'm going to have with you today by going back to what is our expected outcome. This is what we want to do, what I often refer to as our North Star, our direction point. This is the place we go to provide every student the opportunity to learn without limits, which we acknowledge is a very lofty mission. But I also see it as a motivator for us. And what I want to talk about today is the opportunity to take this mission statement from being possible to being probable. And so my comments will be around that today. And I want to first focus on, of the 5 pillars below, what it means to have unparalleled community support. And that is a key part of the success of the school system for almost 52 years. And I wanted to just show you some examples. There are many that you can see, and then when our annual report comes out in just a couple of weeks, you'll be able to see a lot of the accomplishments of our students, a lot of the things that they did in individual schools that range from academics to philanthropy to arts to academics to athletics. It is a wide range of accomplishments that continue to amaze me, record-breaking accomplishments. But here are just a few things that I think are always important to note about what it means to have unparalleled support in the community. We're able to fund 84 teachers locally, and that's phenomenal considering our teaching pool is about 520 teachers. That's a large percentage of teachers that we can do things differently with than other systems might, such as make sure we have class sizes that are lower than average, to offer robust programs in arts and athletics, all of the academic offerings that we can do that are advanced placement offerings, career tech offerings. There are so many value adds to the fact that we have 84 more teachers than the state provides funding for. On the safety and health side, I think it goes without saying this is a critical part of the operation of a school system, that we have a safe and nurturing environment. And I have to say that it's just, to me, astounding that we have a level of support that we will have 12 school resource officers in our buildings when the school year begins. And we've had that support because of the commitment to the system and to our partners with the City of Vestavia Hills. And by the way, those are totally locally funded. There are no state dollars that come for that. We have 12 school nurses, and they're school-wide nurses. We have additional nurses that have individual assignments based on particular student needs, but 12 school nurses, that's a phenomenal mark to me to invest in people for this effort of safety and health. So I think it's important to highlight those things. I believe it's also important to make note of the fact that there's a lot of investment that goes into facilities in the school system. About 10 years ago, there began to be a sudden spike that took place in our school system where we had about 1,000 student growth in a matter of just a few years. Well, that placed a lot of pressure on the school system, and as a result, the Board of Education made decisions to address enrollment growth, and they did that in a lot of ways. You see a listing of those things here, but that concluded a year ago when we invested about $110 million in facilities to address the enrollment growth of our school system. That is a tremendous commitment of local funds to do that. And what that did is it helped us prepare for enrollment growth. So now as you think forward, this is something I've shared with you a number of times, is that we're in a position now where we can absorb growth throughout our system. We do not have to have a second high school in Liberty Park. We have capacity there. We have capacity at the freshman campus. Our elementary schools are a little closer in some places than others to capacity, but our only real growth area in the community, as you know, is Liberty Park. And the Bray development, depending on how quickly it grows, will eventually result in a new school. Well, the Bray development, the residential, retail, commercial, business aspects of that basically fund what will be the needs for a new elementary school. And so that's a good piece of the puzzle that we don't have to think about that part of it when we think about moving forward in our school system. But that's a great plan, I think, on the Board of Education to have prepared for this. What it allows us to do, board members, is to start thinking differently. Like, that's not an immediate issue we have, so what do we need to do? We're in a school system that has some aging facilities. We have a lot of expectation of our community. So what we wanted to do when the strategic plan was finished in June of 2019 is to begin a conversation about how we design a future for our school system, how we think beyond what we're currently providing. So over the course of 3 years, and that's hard to believe, but several of y'all were part of this process, and we had actually over 300 stakeholders in the community, which were parents and business leaders and chamber members and service club members and students and staff that participated in conversations around things like the condition of our facilities, the safety and security of our facilities, the health of our facilities, student supports, the design of the facilities that we have, STEM programs, fine arts programs, athletic programs, a number of meetings held over 3 years to get to a point where we said, we know what we need to do moving forward. One of the last groups that we had meet was a team of financial, I would call them experts. We all gathered together with financial experts around our system. That's accountants and bankers and people just from the business finance service sector to talk to us about what do our books look like. So we just said, let's look at Vestavia Hill City Schools from a financial perspective, and let's ask ourselves 3 questions. Are there opportunities to reduce costs in certain areas without compromising what we do? Are there areas that aren't currently funded adequately, and what opportunities should we consider for the future? This was a great team because I think it affirmed what we thought, but it's always better that you step out of your own organization and let somebody else look, in our case, our community stakeholders, and say what they think. They offered up a few things for us to do. Continue to invest in our people, in our professionals, in our programs, and in our facilities. Look at certain things to try to save money, such as outsourcing or energy efficiencies. And then I'll talk about some potential revenue sources in just a few minutes that they offered up as well that we would explore. So with that in mind, I want to tell you what I believe came from the efforts of these design teams over 3 years, and it was identifying a problem that we have limitations in our capacity to provide every student with profound learning experiences. That's a problem, and we think it's important enough to talk about it, and the solution is that we invest in profound and supportive experiences and in safe and dynamic facilities. It's always important to ask, if you've got an answer, why do you do it? And I think it's about this. I think the importance of connecting our children to people and to the purpose in which they're in school has never been more important than it is today. And I think that it goes without saying, and I heard it with the teachers today, the value of making sure that every student has some connection to what they're doing for 13 years is transformative to their life. And that's a big task, but we think we can do that. And we think when students are disconnected, there are a lot of things that don't go exactly right for them. What we're trying to do is make sure we have the programming in place, the people in place, the facilities in place to make sure the connections are really strong. I cannot emphasize that piece enough, and that is why I think we're here today to talk about this vision, which is 1Rebel and 1Future. And so what 1Rebel, 1Future is, it's really built off, I think, the maxim that Coach Anderson gave us years ago, and some of y'all will probably remember it, having been alumni from there, but from many years ago, he coined the phrase that when you play 1Rebel, you play us all. We thought this was a great way to go because in order for us to accomplish what I want to lay out for you tonight, it will take a strong community effort. It will take a lot of connection within the community to do it. But this is a community that believes in what we're wanting to do and believes that we can cast a future that I think can tackle that vision that we want to tackle. We have 2 focus areas as part of 1Rebel, 1Future. Profound and supportive learning experiences and safe and dynamic learning spaces. You see a list of each of these 4 under the 2 priorities, and I'd like to talk with you about them a little bit more individually. Profound and supportive learning experiences. What we're going to do is really 4 aspects that we would like to focus in on for our students. The first is we have in our elementary grades, K-5, we have art and we have music and we have library. So 3 days a week, all of our students, and mine get to do this, because I have 2, so each week they get to do 3 specials, as it's called. What we want to do is to continue to expand what those specials are offered for our students, because our fabulous Classroom teachers, they have a lot of work to do, and what we're trying to do is enrich the experience that they get from literacy and numeracy and all the things that they learn in class by providing different experiences that we think connect our students. One of those is that we would like to provide a STEM special in our elementary grades for K-5. So once a week they would also have a STEM special to connect them to what I think is a robust opportunity for them in middle school and high school to participate in STEM programs. We also like to do that for world languages. So imagine, if you will, now your elementary students, one day a week get art, one day music, one day library, one day languages, and one day STEM. That's a heck of a week, isn't it? They could do something like that and get that type of robust experience. We are piloting a STEM project at Liberty Park. We did last year and we'll be doing it again this year. It's got great results. At some point this year, Dr. Abbott will share with you, I think, the power of that particular program. So we are still developing this concept, because what we want to do this semester is hearing from our teachers and our experts how we develop curriculums for both of these programs, so we would be ready to go if given the opportunity. We also wanted to continue to invest in the fine arts and athletics, and I'll talk a little bit more of that in a few minutes, particularly with spaces and facilities. And we also want to make sure we're supporting our students the best way that we can. This is a conversation that we want to continue to have, because supporting students means a lot of different things, and we want to make sure we've got the adequate services we need to support our students, whether it be in the counseling arena or other particular areas. It's really important to make sure we look holistically what all 7,000 students have in terms of needs and what we can provide and offer for them. So we're continuing to evolve this conversation, but I want you to know these are our priority areas with profound and supportive learning experiences. And when you pair that with an already robust academic program that we provide throughout our schools, I think it's got great possibilities. Here is one example of, and let me say this, there's a lot of these takeoffs you'll see on here that are designed. This may be like you watch the home improvement shows, it may evolve a bit, but I want you to get an idea of imagining what a STEM lab would look like. Sean did a great job on this, and Sean Common with Layton Associates is behind all of the work that you'll see tonight. But this is one concept of what we would want to see in our elementary grades. That sparked some enthusiasm on my part when my kids see something like that and what can be offered to them to enrich their experience in the sciences and mathematics. Safe and dynamic spaces. I want to share with you that from the last decade of facility growth resulted in about a 23% increase in our facilities. That's a lot of additional square footage, but I want to remind you that we did not add any maintenance staff with that 23% growth. So we're having to manage that a little bit differently today, but it is what it is. We now have over 1.3 million square feet of space throughout our system. We have aging facilities in certain areas more than others. And so what we did was a comprehensive assessment of facilities, of accessibility, of safety and security, and of energy to say, here's what we'd like to do with the facilities that we currently have. And you see a list of those, and I can break some of them down for you, but it goes without saying safety and security is a priority. We've shared with you, this board, some over the years of things we would be looking at, but some ideas of interest I know would be making sure that we have doors that are sturdy, exterior doors that are safe for students and they stay locked, and those are important things to us. That we have vestibules in place that creates more of a barrier between when visitors come into buildings. Those are all part of more strategic ways to provide safer facilities. So the security part is a paramount part of this conversation. We also have aging air conditioning and heating systems, aging lighting systems, roofing, water systems. These are aging, they're getting older. We have certain needs that we have got to meet, I think, to make sure our facilities are in good condition. We want to make sure that we have accessibility on all of our campuses. That way all of our students and all of our visitors and parents that come to us are able to get to the places they need to get to. That's the right thing to do. General facility improvements, that's a laundry list of things principals probably have in their mind that just need some work in renovating older spaces that we want to focus on. Parking and drive improvements. Several of our systems are very much in need of some asphalt work, and we also want to change some of the parking and layouts in some of our schools. One of those is a different kind of design for how we bring parents and visitors in off of the high school campus. So there's several ways we'd like to approach improving our parking and drive layouts. Expansion of the Dolly Ridge kitchen. If you go into that kitchen, you'll see it's the smallest one we got in our school system. And you all might remember Central, that cafeteria kitchen. It's really comparable to that one, isn't it, Ty? It's very close. You would be amazed how our team over there can serve for 700 kids every day in the space. We need some room. That's the campus we purchased a few years ago. It needs a little additional attention, and we need to expand it. And then just generally the upkeep of our facilities. So I mentioned to you we haven't increased our number of maintenance staff. We really need to do that because if we're going to make all these upgrades now, it's just making sure they stay maintained. Here's a comparison that I think is important to note to you about elementary schools. I'm showing you here a comparison of the square footage of the gymnasiums at each of our elementary schools. Each has one. And multi-purpose rooms. So what you'll see is our two largest campuses of students have our two smallest gyms. They happen to be our two oldest facilities. This is where the school started here, right? East and west. And so naturally they weren't built for the number of students that we have today. They're our smallest spaces, and I think Kim and Mark will certainly agree with that. That's a little bit restrictive when you look at some of the spaces of some of our other newer facilities. Comites really came out well on this one. This was a brand new campus addition a few years ago. Just got finished when I got here. It's a beautiful space. Multi-purpose rooms. 3 of the schools have one. East and west do not. Comparability to me is important when talking about facilities. All of them have some uniquenesses. But when there are general uses we want to have take place at all of our schools, we want them to have comparable spaces to do that. So, to that, we would be looking at Cava Heights in Dolly Ridge and Liberty Park with STEM classrooms. In East, we would be talking about taking existing space and making a multi-purpose area, STEM classroom, and additional classrooms, and expand the gym. And at West, we would be talking about renovating for multi-purpose area, for arts and music and STEM classrooms, and renovating the recreational building gym. And I'd like to talk about that one in just a minute, a little more specifically. But here is, I don't want to get a button with it, so I'm looking for the light.
The laser, I think it's the one at the very top.
Yeah, it is, okay. So, if you look at the layout of this campus, it may be better just to discuss it. When you're coming into East this way, this is where the drop-off areas are, the 2 canopies. And what you see in that light shaded brown or kind of tan color is what used to be the cafeteria where students ate. Now they eat over here in this larger space. What we would be doing is adding on to that with that kind of yellowish, orange color with this type of design that would provide for a space for a multi-purpose room, additional classrooms that Mark can use in that space where the cafeteria is. And then you can see beside the office, we would be adding some additional space and probably one of our smallest office areas in the whole system to give them a little bit more administrative room. At the bottom right hand, you can see that we would be wanting to grow the gym to an extent to give it a little bit more square footage for the number of students that they have at East. You've seen a picture of a STEM classroom already, so I won't go back and show you that. But that's the general layout of what we would want to do on the East campus. Here's an inside look at what might be a multi-purpose classroom. Now, by range of multi-uses that can happen, and they simply do not have space in their building right now to do anything like that. At West, if I can orient you, we are, of course, sitting about right here now. So behind us is the West campus. This at this point here, and this is their gym, current gym space. And above us up here at the top is the Chamber Building Recreational Center. So what the concept that we would want to use on this campus is that we would like to connect those facilities, because the Chamber Recreational Building will become our facility once the city has finished the Gold's gym renovation and they move their operation there. So we will take that space. What we would like to do is to make sure the recreational gym would go to West. It's a larger space, obviously, so there's a lot more room than what Kim has now, but we would need to connect them. So you're seeing kind of in between them a little orange notation of what would be a connection to both buildings to keep them, the kids inside as they move from space to space. Now, because of that, we would have a gym that we could work with, and we could take that gym and we could divide it into 2 floors. And this just gives you one example of one of the floors, but the idea would be to add a multi-purpose space, new art and music classrooms. Our classrooms are small, art and music, and so it allows us to get in those and additional classrooms for this being one of our largest campuses. So you can see how the connection would work to the next building. I'll pause for a minute. If you have any questions on the east and west designs. Gym and multi-purpose are our main works on these 2.
And just say, so Dr. Freeman, these suggestions, a lot of them came out of teams that were at our schools, right? Our principals, our teachers, on what they need.
Yeah, the facilities design teams, this was very much a grassroots effort, and I appreciate you bringing that up. Dr. Martin spearheaded that and met with numerous staff members on what are our needs. And we evolved our conversations based on what they thought, what our initial ideas or conceptual designs were to get to this point. So yes, a lot of stakeholder.
I mean, I saw one thing just as a funny way, like it was to the point of we can't move a piano downstairs, so we have to do a structure this way. I mean, it was pretty detailed.
That's right. Yeah, really good work, and I thought a lot of expert advice from the users. It's easy for us to design something that the users have to input, and they certainly did. Here's a secondary space comparison. I think you'll find this interesting, maybe not surprising if you've lived here, went to school here a long time. But the largest campus that we have in our system has the smallest band room and choir room. And those are obviously the largest programs. So it's a comparability issue, I think, for us. We're blessed at the middle schools and freshman campuses. We have good space, but we're woefully inadequate in terms of our art spaces at the high school. Gymnasiums, I wanted to note that Liberty Park has 1 gymnasium. And you might say that's enough for their enrollment, to which I would say you're correct just based on enrollment. But Liberty Park Middle School has the same number of program offerings in athletics as Liberty Park does. So essentially you're talking about the same number of students that are competing or involved in programs, and they have 1 less available space. So that's a piece of the comparability that I referred to. So what we would be thinking about with these learning spaces is a new auxiliary gym for Liberty Park Middle School, additional dressing room space that I'll explain more to you in a minute with Liberty Park Middle School, an arts, athletics, STEM, parking, track, tennis facility. All those conversations we'll delve into more in a few minutes at the high school. And then the chamber building, the part that Ms. Hauser doesn't take as part of the West Campus, will become a space for an annex for the Board of Education. We have staff members in different parts of our campuses now, but we would be pulling them together. It would also be a great place for additional professional meetings and really inviting our community into a place. A lot of our community service groups have been displaced just even here because of our growth, that we want to invite them back in to spaces like that. So let's look at these a little more specifically. Liberty Park Middle School, you can see the main drive in front of the campus here, and here's the existing gym, and then a classroom wing. We have a bay as you come behind Liberty Park Middle School that was laid out when you guys did this project for what would be future expansion. And so the idea is that we would put an auxiliary gym in at that point. I do want to note to you that there's a little marking here for future classroom expansion. As the Bray grows, we'll eventually be having to contend with that at the middle school as well, and we have space to do it. So this is the layout of where it would be. And here's an idea of what an exterior look of the campus would be on that back side. And as you walk inside, you really get a nice look. Still conceptual, of course, but it gives you a good idea of what we're trying to accomplish, which is to get a second gym in the area there. At Lewis Pizzitz Middle School, this is a very, very wide, vast campus, I guess you'd say, Alicia, isn't it? Maybe one way to put it. But on the back side of it, when we built this campus and renovated it, we added a new gym and a new music or band and choir area, and that's all of this space right here. And so one of the things that was an outcome of this work is that we do have 1,200 students. We essentially don't have enough locker space. for all of our student athletes to participate in it. So what we can do with very little intrusion into parking is to add an attachment into the new gym that would be an additional dressing room area, and you can get a good view of what that would be. And that would go a long way in accomplishing some of the challenges that we have with just getting all our kids dressed. Okay, here's the high school campus, and here's coming off of the big hill down to the high school, and then here's our main entrance. And I want you to get a look at that, and let me orient you to what I want to talk about down and getting to what you came for, okay? All right, so here's a section of the parking that is beside the cafeteria and beside the stadium, and then there's a roadway here that will carry us down to the baseball field. So I'm going to focus in on this particular part of the property and this part of the property where the grass field is, and show you what we would like to do on this campus. One thing I think is good to note is when you look at the colors of roofs, that will usually tell you something about the history of a campus. And you can see what's happened from those original kind of orange colored roofs. This campus has grown a great deal. There have been a lot of expansions, one in the last decade that occurred as well. So that gives you a little history. Just look at the color of a roof when you're Googling, and you can get an idea of what's happened. So we want to do some more on this campus with limited space, but to maximize how we use the property. So this gets me to this area that I mentioned to you, and so we'll focus in on each of them separately. But what I'm showing you here is what would be the layout for a new band room. And on the second floor of this band room, it would be a new dance facility. And if any of you have been a part of our dance program or been in those classrooms, you understand the challenges there. Having obstructions in the middle of the room make this difficult. So we would be laying out that. What this does is move the existing band space to an open area that we can now expand our choir room. Because choir moves, we can now expand our theater. So it has a ripple effect. And then we would come into this space, which used to be, Scott, I don't know if this was the gym when you were playing, but this space here, that's now a two-story classroom. The bottom area, we would move our arts programs that are in different parts of the campus into that space. And we would also be moving a lot of our STEM-related courses, classes into that lower floor as well. So that's what happens in all this area. Now, in between here, what you see would be an additional space for a kitchen. We have some real needs with kitchen and in cafeteria space on that campus. It certainly was not set up for 1,500 students. And then we have a plaza area that you'll see in just a few moments that would carry you right into the new gym or carry you into the art spaces. And then where we have the grass area, you'll see the idea of an indoor athletic facility. So conceptually, I wanted you to be able to imagine that when you get on the campus, you have you have an academic area, and then you get introduced into the arts and athletics area of the campus. And we kind of divide that out by looking at it this way. So here's the front of the band room. Here's an idea of what our band room would look like. And I'd like to take you around this building and show this off to you. What would be the conceptual design of it? Went by the band room there. Now you're getting to the back of the cafeteria. Now we're into the plaza that introduces you to the athletics and arts portion of the campus. Sean liked the V right there.
It was a nice touch. It really was.
This is a common space, so cafeteria, if you need outdoor eating, arts classes to be outside, gatherings on Friday nights, it's got all sort of, I think, really wonderful opportunities. So we'll zoom back out here, and then we're going to take a travel down into the band room, and you're going to see some initials that stand for Man, I Love This Band. You're going to see that when you walk through here. That's an important part that came out of the conversations with our arts teachers and Mr. Horton as we were working through this concept. Beautiful view in there. So if I can just go back and zero back down for you, it shows you all the spaces. Band, what's now band would become choir. What's now choir we would have some additional area for theater capacity, a black box type theater. And then as you move on to this side into the plaza, you can see where you have different arts areas and also STEM areas. Now, as you travel through this plaza that introduces you to arts and athletics, you can also head down into a different space that I'll show you in a minute. But here's that dance area up here. It gives you a glimpse of band, STEM. There's the dance area that would be above the band room. So let's travel down to the behind the new gym. So if I'm at this location, I'm in the gym. Here's the pavilion you just came out of it. Here's the new gym. That's the bottom floor, actually. But what we're going to do is we're going to travel down the road that runs between the gym and the football stadium, and you're going to get a view of this indoor facility from the top there, and then we'll take you inside it so you can see what this looks like. The idea of this was to make sure we had something that was an indoor facility that could be used not only for athletics but multi-use. It could be used for band, whatever needs there might be, but we also have other needs within athletics, dressing room space. Wrestling, which is one of our largest programs, we have a really small space that some of you may have wrestled in that we need to use differently. So we want to maximize how we're using those spaces by creating this project. So let me show this one to you. This moves you into the wrestling space, commons area for our students. What this would allow us to do is reutilize some of the existing spaces we have, some other needs for dressing, meeting spaces, etc. Well, I think the obvious question that comes up when you put a building on top of parking is, what are you going to do with parking? And that's a really good question. And my friend Dan is here today, and Dan's one of our students at the high school. Going to be a sophomore, real interested in parking, and has been doing an Eagle Scout project. And this is one of the ideas, was just offer up some suggestions for doing this. So I invited him to come to a board meeting during the summer, and he showed up. And he's here. So we're going to try to answer some questions with this. So if you'll remember now, orient yourself to the band area up here where we took away parking. You get an idea at the top right up there what we're talking about, losing about 100 spaces of parking. So what do we do with that? The idea is that we would come over here to where the tennis court's located, where the old alternative school house is located, and we would make that into parking. And then if you go across the street where the parking goes up into the hill, so to speak, there's additional property the board does own that we could go on further in and develop for additional parking. And so by losing 100 spaces with this development, what we essentially do is estimate gaining I think 170 spaces in total, something give or take like that. Now, right now, student park, we have about 1,000 spaces or so now, I think. The student parking is a little shy of 900 right now. Well, what I believe we could accomplish is that we could get all of our juniors and seniors on the campus. Some of the sophomores that turn 16 maybe a little bit earlier, but we could definitely get our 2 upper grades. We could add visitor parking, which we are woefully inadequate with. If you think about that, those 2 situations alone would go a long way in addressing some of our parking issues. Friday night events gives us a little bit more ability to handle the number of cars that are coming onto the campus as well. And we would, as a part of this project, be reorienting the front drive to create a more safe entrance for people coming and going. That would be part of the ongoing project. So this is a grand idea, of course, to try to improve something where we're taking spaces away to be able to do it. So that begs the question, what happens to the 6 tennis courts? That's a good question too. And I've got an answer for you. So behind the central campus is where the soccer has been played for many years. On this part of town, my boys have played there as well, learned how to ride a bike there. There's a lot of good memories in that park. But several years ago, in honor of one of our, and in memory of one of our great PTO parents, Chantel Dixon-Jones, the track was named in her honor. And so what we wanted to do was to build on that legacy and take our tennis facility and move it to the central campus and not have up just 6 tennis courts, but a center court as well. So we would add a center court to it. One part of the concept is that we could go so far in the space where the playground is and where the basketball courts are now, and that shows you 8 pickleball courts. So pickleball is an emerging sport. It's something that's that's just taken off in a lot of ways. We have good potential here. The yellow is just an idea of some space that we would be putting a bathroom facility. That would be nice within Central to have. And then you can see the top markings of trying to do something with parking. And that's also a really bad situation. And we would be addressing that for a safer way to park and adding spaces to it. So this would be tennis. Now, one question I think I do want to acknowledge is that we cannot put every sport on our campus. We don't have room to. Our strategic plan in athletics talked about this, the idea of wanting to do it, but softball is off campus, and that's where they'll stay off campus. That's the base for it. So we do have precedent where we don't have every sport on campus. This is just maximizing space. So that would be the idea of doing this and honoring what I think it's a great legacy there. And as a result of that, because soccer would be displaced, and they're already doing this to some extent, but we would be utilizing Dolly Ridge. For an elementary school, it has a tremendous amount of property, and so there's a great field back there and a great baseball field back there that is used for soccer space. We have recently put lights on that field, so it will be ready to go. There are some accessibility things we would have to address as part of this project to make sure we've got the ability for people to get out that need a little assistance to get out and watch the fields. But this is part of just the bigger picture, I think, that tying community spaces that the City of Vestavia Hills has done for the last several years together with our projects. If you think about it, we had gym space at Liberty Park. We had the gym space, of course, we already have with the recreational facility, but the athletic facilities at the high school, the dressing at Pizette's, the Chamber of Commerce building, all of that would be meant to tie in and to welcome our community in different ways, more than what we currently have. So, let me go back to the point that our finance team made to us, is let's make sure that we're looking at every possible revenue source that we have. When you're looking at designing a future, there's an investment that has to be made. So we want to talk first about how we first take care of the financial needs that we have, make sure that we're being efficient everywhere we can. And I just want to offer a few points to you about that as part of this concept. Energy management will be a major piece of it. If we did a lot of renovation with HVAC and lighting and water systems, we could save about, and we think at least $1 billion a year in our utility costs, which not right now are, I think, about 2.3 a year.
About $3 million.
About $3 million a year. That would be a great savings for our system to do. We would be considering at some point the sale of the central property, not the field space, but where the school is now. It's really moving out of that area. It's not really something that we see as value to the system any longer, so we would want to try to sell that property if possible. And then we're in the midst of getting more involved in exploring large-scale grants that we can provide for our system, that would provide for programming or additional personnel in different kind of ways. So we want to make sure we're taking advantage of every financial opportunity we have outside before we go asking for anything else. I want to make sure that you also are aware of this. Part of the responsibility we have as a board is to make sure we have a general fund reserve of at least 1 month. That's a state requirement. And our goal as a board is 2 months. And you can get a general idea of where we're heading over the next 5 years toward reaching that goal of 2 months. It is a slow growth. And I tell you that to make sure you understand the context. We're doing a lot of really good things in our system. We have a wonderful school system. We are able to continue to do those things. But we're not in a position where we can do more to meet some of the needs that I believe that we have as part of 1Rebel and 1Future. And that leads us to the conversation about additional revenue sources. So the only way you can have a conversation like this is to acknowledge it is what it is. This is a grand design, a grand vision. I think that the imagination that comes through my head about things that we can do for our students in the next few years is tremendous. I mean, there's so many opportunities, I think, that meet the needs we have to draw connections with our students, but it is an investment. And it would take additional investment because we do not have the capacity to do that now. And for us, the fortunate thing in our school system is that our school system is heavily reliant on ad valorem taxes. You all know it as property taxpayers. You're investing in the schools. By living here, you're investing in it and you're saying it's a priority. When there are times where the economy is a little bit shaky, and there was a little over a decade ago a recession, this school system was able to continue to operate because of the steady source of funds with ad valorem. So that's an important piece of the puzzle for us. But think about this. It's been 32 years, right, Pat, since we had a tax election. That was in 1990. It won by about 32 votes, I believe, if I'm right.
Correct.
Things have changed a great deal. There were a little over 19,000 people at that time. Today we have 39,000. So we've grown a lot, and we've added Liberty Parks campuses, we've added Kyle Heights, we've added a freshman campus. Things have changed dramatically. And while revenues have increased because of all that growth, so have expenditures. And you get an idea looking at our general fund of what that actually means for us to maintain what we're currently doing. So thinking about that, we have to be mindful of the capacity of what we can do now and what it would take to go into the future. Currently, this is what we do in the city of Vestavia Hills. We invest 92.6 mils of ad valorem tax for our whole city operation. The city schools get 52.05 of those mills. And what I want to point out about that is when 1 mill generates about $887,000, that equals about $46 million that goes to the school system. And that represents a little over half of our operations budget. That's amazing that our community provides that much for our school system, but that's what it takes to meet the expectation we have. And so I thought it might be interesting for you to know as well that we spend about $12,770 per student, which is fantastic. But when you look at different sources of revenue for our schools in Alabama, you have state revenues, federal revenues, local revenues. Our local revenues represent a little over half of our budget, as I said. But if you look at just local revenues across the state, we rank 5th in terms of what we give locally to our schools. We have neighboring school systems that rank a little bit higher. Homewood ranks 4th, and Mountain Brook ranks 1st. Mountain Brook provides about $2,000 more per student Vestavia does. I share that with you only for context because we're not Mountain Brook, we're not Homewood, we're Vestavia, but it helps in the context of this conversation. 3 years ago, Mountain Brook provided the opportunity for their constituency to decide if they wanted to add 10 mills of property tax to their levy. And they approved that in September, I believe, of 2019, a 10 mil increase. So just for illustrative purposes, let me use 10 mills for a minute to simplify the conversation. In Vestavia Hills, the average home is a little over $500,000 in value. So let's just use $500,000 and 10 mills because that's an easy way to do math to understand mills. If we were doing something like Mountain Brook at 10 mills, $500,000 house would cost an additional $500 per year. So per month, which is the way most of us pay, that would be about $42. And I took my family yesterday to Taco Mama to give you just an idea, and $42 didn't cover it. But that's a choice we made just to eat out. But it gives you an idea of what impact it would be. So I think it's important for me to say to you, we are not going as high as 10 mills in a request. I wanted to show you that for illustrative purposes as what Mountain Brook did, and it's easy to do the math, but we would not be going that high. So how high are we going? Well, I think obviously with the work we've done, we've planned a lot, we've had a lot of conversation, and we still want to have more conversation. I think it's important we continue to get stakeholder feedback, and continue to evolve and develop our plans, and that I would bring to you something more later in the fall about what I think it would be a definitive amount. It will not be 10 mills. That gives you a good idea of how to think about taxes, though, when you look at it that way. But it is an investment for us, and I think if I can end with this question, I think it's the most important one when you talk about something like this. Why now? Because I recognize the same economic circumstances everyone else in this room does, and even our budgets in our schools are bearing the brunt of some of the things we're having to deal with. That is a reality. Those are expenses today that we're having to deal with. Why now? Because the investing that we make today elevates the value of the Vestavia Hills experience, not only in our community, but in our schools. So I think we have an imperative here. I think it's a call to action that we could offer something to our community to elevate what we provide our school system and vis-a-vis provide our community and our families, and most especially our students.